We already did many things on the data visualization. And now let's look at how we can do a simple integration. What does it mean by simple integration? So in many cases, you need to get the data from database and show them in a graph. And in the system architecture, we have our database, and then it will go to the Python file, which is from the template, and then the view will be in the HTML, but you need to transform the code from the HTML into the JS. So it means you need to get from this data into this JS. So you already know how to put the data into the link, into the URL. You can put the data in the URL as the JSON, or you can put the data into list or any other data structure in .py. So sometimes it is necessary to run some algorithms in prior to visualization. So the next example, we are going to learn how to run a simple algorithm, which is still equilibrium distance, and show the numerical values from the DB to a graph using JavaScript. So it means we will run the algorithm in the server, and then we want to show it in the web using JavaScript. Okay, so let's use the same project, which is the basic REST, and then in the serializers, I think we already have this one. Let's check. In the serializers of the post, okay. So yeah, if you look at this one, if you still remember the serializer, it means we are going to get all the data from the relevant models. So in this case, we are going to get the attribute from the model push. If you do not want to declare the field one by one, you can just mention all. So if you put all like this one, then it means you will get all the attributes. So I will remove this one. Then you will get all attribute from the model post, and then let's look at the algorithm. So we can create the additional function in the views.py, and suppose we want to measure the Euclidean distance. So the Euclidean distance. So I'm going to show you how we can create this Euclidean distance using Python, or you can also use the JavaScript to create the Euclidean distance. It means you can just get the data and then put it in the JavaScript and let the client run the algorithm. Or you can let the server run the algorithm. So it depends on your requirement. JavaScript actually is good for the algorithm, and we can also use the machine learning in JavaScript. It means if you want to train some data and then you want to let the client to do the machine learning, then you can use the JavaScript. So let's see, this is the simple Euclidean distance. Okay. I'm going to put this into the views.py. So I'm going to make one function. This is a function, and then I would like to make P1, P2. So those are the lists, and then yeah, we start from 0 for the total, and then I would like to run the loop for every index. I would like to subtract it and then square or exponent by 2. And then for every of this result, it will be added into the total. At the end, we will do the square root. Okay, so I think you already know this Euclidean distance. So if you look at this formula, you will be able to understand what is the Euclidean distance. Now, I would like to make one function which is compare. So this comparison, I think you already know in the post function that we have in the post app, we have like and dislike. So I want to know whether the number of like and the number of dislike is similar or not. So if the number of like is high and the number of dislike is low, okay, then there is a big gap. It means, okay, maybe this post is good, or yeah, something which we need to understand whether this post is good or not good. But if the like and the dislike is similar, then yeah, we cannot distinguish whether it is good or not. So we can get, let's say this is all data. Okay, com is all data from post, and then I would like to get the data only like. So you know how to get the SQL. So I want to get only like, and then I will put it into P1. And then I want to get also dislike, and then I want to put it into P2. So there is one parameter, we call it flat. Okay, so what is flat? Let's see later. What is the purpose of this flat? After you do the flat for these values and these values, you can make a list. You can make a list, and then you put those lists into the function Euclidean, and we will show the result. Then we will pass all the values into the HTML file, which is comparison. So let's make a URL, which is the new path in the URL as the py. Okay, so I want to compare between the JavaScript and the Python, whether they show the same result or not. Let me make a new HTML file, which is comparison, and the comparison will be in the folder charts. Okay, so I will copy this one and then put into the folder charts. So I will make a new HTML file comparison. And then I paste into this code. I will explain a little bit later. So let's see how we can see the result using this one. So I'm going to check the comparison. So I have 4 posts. Okay. So the first post, the like is 100 and the dislike is 1. The second post, the like is 82 and the dislike is 47. Third post, the like is 34 and dislike 95. So there is a gap between the like and dislike. So I want to know what is the distance. So if the distance is high, it means the gap is high. If I look at this one, okay, this is the equilibrium distance using the Python. But what is the equilibrium distance by the JavaScript? So if I click this one, then it shows the result, and then you can compare. The result is the same. Now let's look at the code. For the Python code, I think I already explained that one. Now let's see how the JavaScript works. So there are some steps in the JavaScript. At the first time, you need to see the HTML file. So we are creating the table, and then we want to put for the data, which is the data from the post, which is from home. And then I want to show the ID, title, like, and dislike. For the equilibrium distance from the Python, I will just call the result because the Python already create the code for the equilibrium distance. Look at this one. The result. Okay. So here is the result. I just want to show it into HTML file. And then for the equilibrium distance by the JavaScript, it is an input or it is a text, and then there is a button. So if I click the button, it will run the function eDistance. What is the function eDistance? So there's a function eDistance in the script in the head. At the first time, let's get the value. What is this value? So I want to get from the document, from the body, and then let's get the element by ID, which is P1, and let's get the value. So the value will be from the ID P1. So this is the ID P1. The type is hidden. It means you cannot see in the HTML file. It is just a type to save the variable in the web, but it will not be shown in the HTML. And then the value will be from the Python, which is PP1. PP1 is the value that we get from the list. So we just forward the value PP1 into the web, and then this value will be forwarded into the JavaScript. So after we have the value 1 and the value 2, so we need to understand what is this value. So the value that we get from the HTTP, from the body, it is not well formed. Okay, so you can look at this one. Actually, you can make the console log value 1 and value 2. Okay, so if I do this one, so if I click, you can see the value is like this one. So it is a list. So it is a list. So 182, 3450, and then the other list is 1, 47, 95, and 51. So we pass the value into the HTTP or the body, and then we put it into the JavaScript. In order to make it as an array, so the array in JavaScript is not, maybe the representation is the same with the array in Python. However, when we get this value, it is only the, we can say this is a string. Okay? The value is a string. So we need to pass the value into a format in the JavaScript, and we call it this as the JSON. So the JSON can have two meanings. The first JSON is the data that you usually use. So using the key and then the value using a kind of dictionary. So the other kind of JSON is how we can present the data into the JavaScript object format. So in this case, I would like to show the A, which is from the value 1. So I would like to replace for any value that we have in the value 1 as a string, and I want to transform it into the JavaScript object. So we are going to pass the A, which is the value that has been replaced for every possible string. So for example, this one is the double quote. So we want to replace that one. And then G, so we want to replace for every white space. Okay. So we also replace the value 2. Okay. And you can look at this one. For example, you want to see what is the array 1 and what is array 2. Okay. So whenever you do the programming, you can look at the result by just printing it. So you can see if it is in the form of the HTML, it is a string like this one. But when you do with the JSON format, then it will be represented in the JavaScript format. So this is the JavaScript format. It is automatically show that it is an array, and then they have the length of 4, and the value for every index is this one. So we need to transform into the JSON format so we can do more function like array or for, if, and etc. Okay. So this is the conversion part. And after you have the conversion, now I would like to do the computation. So the computation will be the same with the computation in Python. We are using the math function POW. Do you know POW? This is also the same in Python. It means power. Okay. So the array 1 in index I will be subtracted with the array 2 index I, and then we will exponent by 2. So every value will be added into the total, and then at the end we will do the square root. After we do the square root, we will put the total into the min form dot rest dot value. What is it? Min form. So we have the form name. This is the main form. And then what we are going to put is into the text file or the text type, and the name is price. That's why we put this one, the main form dot res. And we are going to update the value. The value will be the total that we get from this calculation. So that's why we set the value at the first time is null or no value, but after we click, okay, on click, after we click this function, then the value will be replaced with the value in the total. Okay. Now I want to show you what about this flat. You can also see this part. You can print. So if you print, you will see like this. Whenever you do the query, okay, whenever you do the query, you will see that the result will be something like this. It is the query set. Okay. So if you don't use the flat equals to true, so the value will not be in the list. The value will be separated for every object. So when you use the flat equals to true, then it is automatically changed to a list in the query set. That's why we need to have a function flat equals to true. So if it is a list, I think it's very easy. Okay? But if you want to change to dictionary or other type, yeah, you need to find what is the proper parameter. Okay. So the overall sequence is like this one. Okay. So we have the DB. When we use Python, we use the fuse.py and then we put it into the HTML and then yeah, we run into the JavaScript. But there is another way. You can do the DB. You can call the data in the DB and then you use the REST API, and then the REST API will be called into the JavaScript. Okay. So this is another possible way to run your code in the JavaScript. Oh yeah, I give this explanation. So this is a regular expression or regex. Okay. The replace method search a string for a specific value or a regular expression and returns a new string where the specific values are replaced. So we want to replace for the values with the specific value for the JavaScript notation. So this is one of the reference if you want to learn about the regex or regular expression. Now, let's say if I want to combine, I have the result from the Euclidean distance, and then I want to show it into a graph. So let's modify the comparison.html. Okay, I think you already know what is the meaning by this one. So let me modify with the new code. So let's see the result. I can click this Euclidean and then I can see the visualization. It means I can know that, okay, the first post have the very big gap of like and dislike. The second post, okay, maybe is a little bit balanced, but the fourth post is the most balanced pose between like and dislike. Yeah, I hope that you can do this one in your team project. Okay, so the visualization, this is also important. Now let's look how we can do this visualization. We can just call the G static, which is the function in the Google. We are using the Google chart. Okay. And the package, we are just using the core chart because it is the bar chart. And I remove the JavaScript in the head because I'm using the REST API. So this is the table. I think you understand this table. Now, in the main form, yeah, it is still the same. I would like to get the value from the JavaScript e distance, but in this e distance, I will create more functions. What is the more function? I will make the combination of the array. First, I get the value from the HTML, and then I transform from the string into the JavaScript format. And then I would like to make the array. So this kind of array, I would like to use it for the visualization. So do you know how to make the array in the Google chart? So you can see in the previous section, okay, we have this kind of array, or yeah, we have this kind of array. So we want to transform what we already did on the first part. Okay, what we already did to change the value from the Python file into the JavaScript, and then we want to make it into a kind of array in the JavaScript, so that this array can be used for the project. So there will be a transformation. So for every value that I calculate with the Euclidean distance, I would like to put into this array. So this array is, the first is the index. The next is the array I, the array 1, and then the other is the array 2. So I will put it all into the variable combine. And after I have this combined, so you can see later the result here. So the combine will be like this one. So if we have this data, then this data can be used for the Google chart. This data can be used for any chart that you want to use in your web. And yeah, the last part is just draw chart. You want to draw based on the array to data table, because I have the array which is the combine, and I want to change this array into the data table. And then I would like to, this is only just to print, and the title of the graph will be like and dislike, and I'm going to use the bar chart, and I'm going to show it into the container element. So the container element will be here. So I will see the bar chart in this ID. So the chart draw will be from the data, which is from the combine, and then options, which is the title, like and dislike. So this is the statement. That's why we will see like this. So we can see the bar chart from our database. Now, if I want to draw the chart from the REST API, is it possible? So you will see, I already make this function draw chart. Okay. So this is the function draw chart. I will not use this function draw chart. Okay, this is from the array. But if I want to use the REST API, you can use like this. So the function draw chart. First, I would like to get the API. So the API we already set from the REST API. So we do not use any data from the HTML. We just directly get the API. So this is the API. And the API type is JSON. And I would like to transform this JSON into text. After I have this text, so I would like to parse this JSON into the data that the JavaScript can read. And this data will be formed into the array. Okay, so the result will be a new array, and the result 2 will be a new array. And then for every I in the parse data, let's put it into the result 2 and result 1. So here, the result 2, I would like to push the parse data I, which is the ID, into string. I want to pass the data I, this is the second, which is like, and then I want to pass the data I into the third column, which is dislike. So I will get this result, and then this result will be applied into the Google chart, which is using the data table. So I'm creating the column ID, the column like, the column dislike for the Google visualization, and then I'm inserting every data from the result into the row in the data table. And the last one is just preparing the option, which is about the title, like and dislike, and then we call the chart. So by using this one, actually, you do not need to have this function. Okay. So you don't need to have this function because it is directly from the API. So you just transform this JSON format and then put it into the array in the JavaScript and then put it into the data table for the visualization. So if you have any API from, maybe in Korea, you have the Hong Kong data. Okay. So you can just call the API and then transform it into the array of JavaScript, and then you can show directly the data in the JavaScript. Okay, so that's all about the data visualization. Okay. So you learned many things about the data visualization, and you learn about the data types for visualization, and you learn about the essential element for interaction and technology fundamentals and some existing open source, including the charts. Okay, okay then, let's have a break. I will continue after the break.